The Hub is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Protecting the plastic. Just how well do agency and department heads manage the use of Government of Guam credit cards? That's what the public auditor has been looking into. His office has been conducting a series of audits recently on how well the agencies are handling the plastic, and he's turned up more than a few concerns. So far, he reports no instances of fraud and abuse, but he's finding that some are not following their own rules and regulations. Does the convenience and benefit of credit card use outweigh the potential for misuse? We'll ask the public auditor about that and a lot more coming up on The Hub.
The Hub is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. The Hub is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to The Hub. I'm Nestor Lecanto. Our guest this week is none other than Public Auditor BJ Cruz. Thanks for joining us, BJ. You've been conducting a series of audits on government credit card use, and so far you found some concerns. The most recent one, of course, was the Port Authority of Guam, which has already come out and said there was nothing fraudulent, but yet they did not really follow all the rules. So I was wondering if we can start there, start the discussion there on the port audit.
Okay. What do you want to know about it?
Oh, yeah. What basically, could you just give us a brief overview of what some of your findings were with regard to their use of credit cards?
Yeah, we found that sometime back in 2014 that the previous administration had gotten authorization from the board to get a credit card, which I think is a good idea because some of the things that we need to get, our subscriptions to Microsoft, for our laptops and stuff need to be done with laptops, and that has annual subscriptions, and you need to have a credit card on file. So I don't fault departments having credit cards. What we're trying to do is trying to point out, write your SOP or for your department in such a way that it takes into account what you need to do, and also write it in such a way that you're going to comply with it. And when the board approved it in 2014, the board had some kind of requirement that you had to also file some kind of document with every single credit card use. Unfortunately, no one from 2014 till we came back in realized that the board had required that. I don't know how it could have gone for almost 10 years that they didn't realize that they needed to do it. I'm just saying both prior administration and this one didn't realize that there was this requirement. But my auditors, being the good auditors that they are, went back and asked for all the documents that the board had to look at and everything that the board had when they made the approval. And the board said, you have to file this with every single one. Well, we didn't find that with anything. So it was just a practice that they hadn't implemented, but it was their own requirement. And that's not fraudulent, but it just wasn't complying with something that they had written themselves. So we just point that out to go ahead and do that. And with all of the audits that we're doing, and you just kind of have to know and look at it very carefully, is that when we do our audits, we don't look at every single transaction. And so we always just take a sample, and from that sample we make our findings. But please note that to the departments, that's not the only question cost that could be possible. That's the only question cost that we found in the sample that we looked at, which can be as small as 10% or 6% or of what was actually expended. Like I think the port, we looked at $38,000 worth of expenditures, but there was actually $171,000 worth of expenditures during that 3 year period. So it's just the window into what's going on, and we wanted to point out to all the departments, look, everybody needs to read the rules, and everybody needs to comply. The same thing when we did the Gora one. They wrote that they can't use it for dinner, meal expenses. Well, then why did you use your card for a reception that you were going to have to commemorate your 60th, 40th, 60th, or 40th anniversary? I can't remember. It was some big anniversary. So just be cognizant of what you're doing, and when we did like the GPA one, be cognizant of what you need to do, and don't write rules that are going to preempt you from doing it, using it. Like we found something they use to buy something that they needed uh, uh, for some repairs. Well, rewrite your rules so that you don't have it in the rules that you can't do that, So
Yeah.
that's all that we're trying to do is to try to make sure that everybody complies with their own rules. And that's not to say that the rules should be carte blanche and just anything. Make it reasonable to what your department needs to do and what for your operations. But once you write those rules and your board approves it, or you approve it as an entity, then comply with it. We don't write your rules for you, and we're not finding you in compliance, in non-compliance of some standard or rules that we've written. We're only using your own rules to judge what you're doing.
Sure. I mean, so should the onus be more on the audit, and should they be responsible? Should they be for policing themselves?
Can you ask that question? You broke up a little bit. You froze.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, how much of the onus should be on the, an internal audit, and how should they be policing themselves?
The onus should be completely on their own internal audit division, and they should be policing. We shouldn't find that, and with the port, that, that's what I mentioned to them was, you stole 3 of my people, and the GPA stole 3 or 4 of my people. I said, you have good auditors that you've taken from me. Put them on this, why, how could, what were they doing that they didn't find the document that my auditors found? And get them on it, and make sure that you guys comply, because you don't want to have me do a follow-up audit on this in 5 years or 3 or 4 years and find out that you're still non-compliance. But
Yeah.
that is the function of internal audit. Go ahead. Your next question.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason that prompted the? Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there any particular reason the OPA was prompted to do like a government-wide review of credit card use?
No, it was just we just saw the inherent risk that credit card use or abuse could pose to government, and we wanted to catch it early before it got to it got out of hand. I know that this office, before I got here, actually had a rule against credit cards. And for almost 3 years, I kept trying to convince the office that we needed to get a credit card. And because, when I was at the legislature, I had suffered because our subscription to some internet something or other was such that it needed a credit card, and one of the staffers had it on his credit card. And when he left, he canceled it and canceled all of our accounts. And so, I said, I don't want to be left high and dry. And here, when I got here, there were people whose credit cards were being used to carry subscriptions of the various things that we needed to have on for our internet service. I mean, I don't know. That's how ignorant I am of it. But I just know that credit cards are necessary for the annual renewal of subscriptions and some of credit cards. Yeah, I mean of your programs and your internet use and stuff. And some of them were getting hired away. And when they were getting hired away, we were going to have to write them reimbursement checks. And I said, this is crazy. This is crazy. There should be a credit card that we can use for just that purpose. I mean, I don't have it on in my wallet, but it's in the ASO's safe, and we have a procedure by which we use it. So I think it's important that some of the departments have, I understand the need for it in this day and age. But you need to have good rules and regulations. And so we decided, well, let's see what kind of rules and regulations were being written. There had been news stories about certain people taking their staff out to have, I think it was a massage for the well-being or something. One department did that. And so we said, well, maybe we should look at that before it gets too late. And so we sent out a survey of to see how many departments had credit cards. And of the 50, almost 60 government departments, there was only 11 departments that responded that they had a credit card for the use of the office. And so we thought, well, let's just do sampling of them and see how they're going. And hopefully, now that they know that we're looking, everybody else who hasn't had an audit will go back quickly and check what their SOP says and to do what their SOP is requiring them to do, or as we recommended to the port, amend your credit card SOP. And even at the GWA and GPA, we told them at least amend it to address what we can see is a necessary need for the credit card in your department.
Yeah. So would you say the purpose and benefit of credit cards used by government of Guam outweigh the potential for misuse?
Ooh, I don't know if I could go that far, but I know that that it is important to function. And I just caution everybody, it's not something that the director should be carrying around in his or her wallet. I mean, it should be kept in the office with the ASO or the chief the certifying officer, and before you use it, that you have to comply and make sure that you request and that there is money for that, and that's something that can be used, and you have at least 3 people checking off on it to make sure that this is an acceptable use of the card. Don't just have it and just pull your wallet out and just, oh yeah, this one's is that one being rejected? Oh, this one should probably work. No, that's not what it's for. It's for those times when it's absolutely necessary to be able to or you need to get what you need. And if that means travel, then travel, have to get airline tickets, or whatever, if it can be. But just make sure that your SOP allows for it.
Yeah. Of the agencies that you've reviewed so far of their credit card use, how would you grade? Would you give them?
I think it's nobody's failed. It's a C plus B. There's no one with an A, but it's just they're there, and for the most part, they're using it appropriately, and but in some instances, you just need to make sure that you're not using it to avoid procurement rules, and you're not using it for or against procurement law, or not using it for purposes that you didn't provide for in your SOP. We have a couple more that are coming.
Do you have any?
And I'm looking forward to them, because some of them have some interesting charges on them, and I'm like, this does not.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Compute. I said, no, we have a few more agencies that are going to be done, because we've only done, I think, what now, 5, 6 agencies, and we have about 5 more. So we'll do a couple more, because there are a couple that I think we need to nip in the bud some of their expenditures.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for best practices for use of government credit cards, or should there be one uniform policy?
Well, I think the best practice for almost any expenditure in government is make sure that no expenditure is done by and through only one person doing it. Make sure that you have at least one, if not 2 other persons checking, on the approval list, to make sure, one, that's an appropriate expenditure, 2, that they're certified funds, and 3, that it's that whatever other compliance that you need to do, but it should never be a unilateral decision to use by one person. It really should be a expenditure that's approved by at least, that is checked on by at least 1 other, if not 2 other individuals within the department, to make sure that your unilateral decision doesn't get the department into big trouble. It should be something that you have somebody else look, and with fresh eyes and from a different angle, they can say, well, sir, that probably is not going to be an appropriate expenditure. I'm not going to sign off on it. Or sir, or ma'am, that's prohibited. I'm not going to sign off on it. So if your backup crew doesn't, one of them balks, then you probably should stop and think about before you give your credit card number.
All right. BJ, we got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more of our discussion with the public auditor on Government of Guam credit card use right after this break.
The Hub is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. The Hub is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
All right, and we are back with Public Auditor BJ Cruz, and we've been talking about Government of Guam credit card use. And BJ, I was just curious about the mechanics of the credit card use by government employees. So are they vetted? Is there a specific list? Is it limited to only a specific rank of employee? And do they pay interest on the credit card balances? Can you give me some more detail about that?
Well, It all depends on the department. Like when we did the credit card for Gura, they had two credit cards for to be used up there. One credit card was for the purpose of, I think, was in the name of the executive director, but that was to be used by the executive directors, the executive director's special assistant or somebody to take care of expenses of commissioners that were traveling. You know, they have a board of commissioners. Um, and that's how they wrote their rules. And they had another rule, they had another card in the name of the controller, and that was supposed to be used for some procurement stuff. But they were getting things all mixed up, and I just told them, hey, I didn't write the rules, you guys. You were the one that said that this card was only supposed to be used for, you know, for the use of the commissioners. If you want it for other uses, then amend your rules to include that you're going to amend, you know, that it can be used for other purposes, or don't be quite as restrictive as you originally wrote it, you know, which was admirable, but may understand that in order to be able, it's supposed to give you the ability to be able to operate. So take into account what you know, what you need to do and give yourself some of that authority, but make sure that you have checks and balances on it. The other thing in the question that you asked on interest is that the other thing that we're dinging or making findings on some of the departments is they've got to keep track of their expenditures and to make sure that they make their payments on time. Because you know that if you don't make your credit card payment on time, all of a sudden there's not so much a penalty, but all of a sudden the interest is different because you don't make a timely payment. Make your credit card payment timely. If you made a charge on your credit card, there should have been certified funds available, or you in order to be able to make that expenditure, there had to be funds somewhere. So between the time that you use the card and 20 or 30 days later when the bill comes due, there should have been money in the account and authorized to pay that. Pay it before the interest starts to accumulate. Why would you accumulate thousands of dollars, you know, a year in credit card interest fees, payments, and interest? You should be on top of your card expenditures and make payments. You know, I mean, I the one thing that I'm good at now personally is the fact that you have apps now that can tell you what your credit card. I mean, you know, I can go on, show my ugly face on my phone, and in my accountant will open up and tell me you've run up this much on your credit card, and payment are due. You have to make this amount of payment by the 21st of the month. Then make the payment before the 21st of the month. Don't have them just take a minimum payment and then tack on some fee, and then you start accumulating interest. Try to keep the interest to an absolute minimum. You know.
Yeah, and finally, BJ, we only got a couple of minutes left. So, are you hoping that these audits that you're doing are kind of raising the awareness and maybe prompting agency heads to kind of review their policies and shore those up?
Yes, I am. You know, and I'm hoping that it does, because, you know, it was a sea change for even this office to get a credit card, because my predecessor was a firm believer against credit cards. And I think that was because when they did audits, you remember the scandal, of Marty's. I, or I don't know if you were off island at the time, but there was a big scandal up at Gita that they were taking their credit card across the street and running up a bill at Marty's for happy hour. And so, it was anathema to be even think about a credit card in this office. And my management team here was, of that mindset that, we've been against credit cards since 2006 and whatever year it was, and we're not, we don't think it's a good idea. And finally, after about the third or fourth reimbursement check, I said, guys, you're killing me. Why do we have to give a former employee a reimbursement check because their credit card is being charged to pay for our subscription to some program? And we've got to have a card. Just write the rules as strict as possible and make sure that at least two, if not three of us, have to check off on each of the expenditures before we're authorized to use the card, before you can even have authorization to get the card out of the safe in order to be able to use the number to make the charge. Two of us or three of us have to at least have signed off and said it's an appropriate expenditure and we can do it. I said, I know that's cumbersome, but it's also cumbersome to have some employee cancel it and then all of a sudden we can't go onto our computers because the subscription is in somebody's name that has left. Thankfully, they're still alive and they have the credit. But what if one of them had died or something and the card was stopped and it was our major teammate subscription? I said, we'd be killed. I mean, we'd really be in a pickle. So please, let's just get over it and make sure that we can write this. And so I'm just assuring that you can do it and you can do it correctly, but make sure that one, you do the RFP out or the IP out to make sure. And one of the other things that we were finding was whether or not you want to be paying fees for the credit card because it has mileage, or whether you want to get a credit card that is going to give you cash back. Some of those credit cards are given cash. And you have to actually, we sent out the bids to all the banks, and I had a committee that actually looked at everything, and they decided that between having mileage or cash back, that the cash back credit card was the better deal and was cost us less. And so we did that. And so you can do that because otherwise the other departments, if you get a mileage thing, all of a sudden you have to deal with the Edward Cruz mileage program, and where is that going? So
all right, BJ, thank you so much. We're out of time. That's Public Auditor BJ Cruz talking about GovGuam credit card use. I'm Nestor Lecanto. That's it for The Hub. Thanks for watching, everyone.